I just want to make sure quickly, is it recording? Are you seeing a message on your side? Okay.
Yeah.
It's recording.
Okay, super, good. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this panel discussion, this event arranged by Sydney and his team. Chatbot Africa and Conversational Artificial Intelligence in Africa is a topic that we all on this panel are really very excited about. So what I would like to start off with is to go through the panel members, and I'll do it in by alphabetic order, by first name. So Antoine, I'm going to start with you. Just introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your company. I think let's keep it to 2 or 3 minutes each, and then we'll go to Frederick and Harmony and Michal. So Antoine, welcome.
Sure, thanks so much for this opportunity. I'm Antoine Paillusseau. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Chatbot. We're a conversational AI solution business operating out of South Africa. We launched in South Africa, and we're now operating in Europe too. We specialize in helping financial institutions to provide fantastic customer experiences in acquisition, customer service, and retention. We're a team of 42 present in 2 continents. I just remember when we started, we were 2 in a small terrace in Cape Town, and now we're 42 in 2 continents. Always good to look backwards and be grateful for the journey. We raised a bit of funding, 2.5 million euros over 2 years, and actively growing at the moment and targeting a Series A by the end of this. So exciting time for us, and focusing, as I said, on the financial industry. So working very much with top-tier insurance and banks clients, and we'd love to engage with this panel to challenge our thoughts or growing together this beautiful journey.
Fantastic, Antoine. Thank you so much. Frederick, as far as I know, you are in Tanzania. Welcome. Please tell us a bit about yourself and also what you're doing.
Okay, so like you said, my name is Frederick Apina, and I'm from Tanzania. I'm the co-founder and CEO of the startup called Metro. So at Metro, we work on creating conversational AI technologies, and we are focused mainly on creating these conversational AI technologies on African languages. So we started Metro after having an experience of having different chatbots, whereby there was a problem in adapting these chatbots in Tanzania, where Metro is located. Since most of the Tanzanians speak Swahili, which is not it's not easily covered on most of the chatbots. So that was a big challenge, and it's also the most spoken language in Tanzania, and it's the official language in Tanzania. So that was a challenge. So we saw that as an opportunity whereby we can start working on different African languages, because after doing a lot of research, we saw that most of these African languages are not well represented. So that's when we decided to start working on Beltro. So the biggest vision of Beltro is being able to create conversational AI technologies which can adapt to various African languages that exist in the continent. Yeah, so that's Beltro and me in brief.
Fantastic, Frederick. Definitely want to touch on the African language aspect of this technology, which I think is a challenge and an opportunity for using this technology. Next, I would like to go to Harmony. I think you are joining us from I want to say sunny Johannesburg, but it's been rainy and cloudy today. But how are you doing? And tell us a bit more about yourself and your company.
All right, thank you. My name is Mothibe, and I'm the founder and director at Bozza. We are a research and development company, and we specialize in helping organizations integrate conversational AI into their business processes. Well, the goal is to basically help them become more productive, efficient, and as well as providing exceptional experience to their customers. And in terms of our demographics, we're a South African-based company, but we already have footprints in the UK as well as in Kenya. So that's about us.
Fantastic, Harmony. And then lastly, joining us all the way from Poland, Michal, thank you for joining us. I know you guys are also doing some very exciting things. I spoke with your colleague Carol a few days ago at Voice Launch. So tell us a bit about yourself and what you are doing.
Thank you for having me. My name is Michal Stanislawek. I am the CEO and co-founder of a startup called Other1. We are an agency and an R&D shop out of Poland. We work mostly creating branding experiences for customers across the world on the voice assistant platforms such as Amazon Alexa or Google Assistant. We do have a couple of R&D projects running as well, including things like cough detection for hospitals and a small few others, smaller alike. And together with Carol, we have started a voice community called Voice Launch back in March 2020 when the pandemic hit. And so far we're available in 11 geographies. We've got 2 topical meetings running and 1 global one that happens every week since March 2020.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Michal. So let me maybe start off our conversation by posing the following question. I think, look, for me and in my experience, the concept of chatbots is so misunderstood. Firstly, I think the word bot in that name is what causes confusion, maybe the same with robotic process automation. And when we ask people about or talk to people about bots, we immediately think about Hollywood movies and these little creatures that's taking away our jobs and that might kill and destroy us. So if my bank tells me I'm going to speak to a chatbot, and obviously they're not going to warn me, I'm just going to chat to a chatbot. And if Turing was right, I wouldn't even know I'm speaking to a chatbot. But my sentiment would be that I don't want to speak to a bot, I want to speak to a person. So I maybe want to kick off our conversation there about this concept of chatbots and obviously of conversational artificial intelligence. And Harmony, I'll maybe start with you and ask you, what is your experience in dealing with your clients and with your peers and also in your country? What is the perception people have when it comes to chatbot technology, and what can we do as a community to increase the positive view that people should have about this technology?
Yeah, well, I think it's a very, like, initially when we started, it was quite a very broad topic, like you said, especially around chatbots, like people thinking that it's actually something that's going to be smart and answer all the questions, and then it's going to be general, it's going to be able to address all the issues that they may have. So that was initially the perception around it. So we spent the first few years actually playing a bit of an educational role in terms of, what actually are, what is the difference between, chatbots or, for instance, conversational AI around, what is text, what is, domain specific, and what is general, conversational AI. So I think initially, it was more about finding, understanding what problems actually need conversational AI. Because when we started, it was more about, just having a solution, looking for a problem to solve, which was kind of a little bit, it was kind of mistaken. Whereas actually conversational chatbots really address issues around, support, around, service delivery, about, just a wide range of things. So, but mainly things that we've actually find out, we've actually identified 3 things, processes that are very repetitive, processes that are very manual consuming, and processes that are very, that are time consuming, repetitive, and manual. So those are the 3 things that actually we've identified, and then we started applying, looking at actually how can we leverage on conversational chatbots or conversational AI to actually solve those issues.
Okay. Fantastic, Harmony. And you actually make me think about my next question, and I'm going to throw you under the bus, Frederick, although I can't throw any of you under the bus because you know what you're talking about. I think a key thing you're touching on, Harmony, is not just, again, I think people think it's almost like a Q&A thing. I'm going to ask the bot a question, it's going to give me an answer. I could have Googled it. I could have gone to a Q&A page. I think that's the experience for some people, especially historically. you're touching on something that I'm very excited about. Is this technology kicking off certain processes? Because now I'm asking my bank for an increase in my overdraft facility, for instance. And what I don't want the chatbot to do is eventually, after all this conversation, is point me to a human being, unless it's really needed. I want it to just kick off the process. So I think from that point of view, Frederick, what do you see when it comes to process automation and connected with this kind of technology? What is your view on that?
Well, I think touching on what Harmony was saying, I think there's a misconception there, whereby most people, for example, from our experience in Tanzania, when you go to, let's say, it's a telecom company and you are trying to sell the product, one of the things that most of these people that we come across, the first question they might ask is, so will this chatbot be answering everything? Or maybe you give them to try it out, and the first thing they do is try to just throw it, anything that they can think of, just throwing at it. So then we have to then sit down and say, no, basically, I think you need to first understand what the chatbot is. So what a chatbot basically, we try to make them understand that it's not something that answers everything, or say like this general AI, rather than it's just it answers on specific areas, and that is one of the one of the successes that we have come to see is that most of the chatbots that we have found that are very effective are the ones that are specific on certain tasks. So if it's referring to what Johan you're saying, like on process of automation, if the chatbot is specific on a certain task, so let's say it's banking, and the way the chatbot is designed, or the way it's modeled, is in a way that it helps automate that process, and not only automating the process, but it has to guide the person or the customer that is interacting with it. So the automation process, I think, on top of that, it's not just automation, but it's something that is a guided automation. Because without a guided automation, then the person can just throw everything at it and expect that maybe all of his or her queries can be answered. But rather than the chatbot is not only doing that, but it's trying to, because we are not at a point where the chatbots can answer everything, or say like general AI, but we're at a point whereby the chatbot are still specific functioning. So you can just throw it everything. Yeah. So I think the way we think of automation, I think that's something that I think the understanding of that needs to be really delivered in a way that people understand that automation means that being able to solve or to easily solve the tasks that people want, but the ones that are in the domain specific of what the chatbot can do. Yeah.
Fantastic, Frederick. Thank you. Based on that, Antoine, I'd like to move to you next and ask you the perception that customers that you deal with have about this technology. So I know you guys deal with financial services, insurance predominantly. Do your corporate customers also see this as a kind of a silver bullet? It's going to fix a lot of our problems, and then they might be disappointed because the way it is implemented is maybe not correct. So it's almost about what are those misconceptions, not just in consumers, but in your corporate customers that you find is recurring all the time that you need to address.
Yeah, there are a couple of them. I would say from a corporate side, there's a lot of misconception around the fact that this technology can be implemented, can be, insourced with an internal team that is generally constituted by a lot of engineers that are looking at, the data science and the AI side. But you have a much broader scope if you think about it. It's not only about how the intents are identified, but what is the quality of the answer that you're offering to the customer? And what is the processes that you can map behind that will answer the query? It's one thing to identify that someone is interested in receiving a statement, but it's another thing that's enabling the person to download the statement instantly within the same window without having to log on another environment. or so on. So that's I think a misconception to think that you only need engineer and dragging and dropping to provide a good customer experience. It's much broader than that. Now, from an end customer's point of view, we try to be always upfront in the approach. So really saying this experience doesn't do everything. However, if you want to insure your car, if you want to open a bank account, then we're the right tool for you. So mapping a couple of processes like KYC, being able to, do a face verification, ID upload, all those elements are really, really interesting from a user experience point of view, rather than trying to answer 100% of the queries, which would never happen. We'd rather start with the processes, mapping the right experiences very, very well, and then implement a more free text type of approach. Therefore, you satisfy the customers, prove the business model, and grow to a more AI-driven solution. That would be my feedback.
Okay, super. Michal, I want to ask you next, because you're joining us from Poland. I went to Krakow, I think it was 2.5 years ago, and so more Eastern Europe and Russia. So I went to St. Petersburg and Moscow. It's all conferences, and I went to Latvia. And I was really surprised with how advanced some of these countries are when it comes to this kind of technology and artificial intelligence and software engineering. And it almost seems to me that parts of Eastern Europe are becoming a more suitable outsourcing region than the likes of India, maybe, and the Philippines. So even though our conversation today is primarily on this technology as it relates to Africa, what are you seeing within Eastern Europe? And if you could comment on it, maybe the rest of Europe.
Sure. So I'll start with the outsourcing situation. I mean, for sure, the Eastern Europe has been for a long time, a place where you could outsource really high quality technical people for your projects, and this has been used by many companies so far. We definitely have a lot of great people within Poland as well, but then we are also a society that understands inherently the new technology that is being provided as well, and I'm talking about the broader Europe here. But the example that I want to give you is what we've done in the early days when Google Assistant launched in Poland. So in Poland, Google Assistant is only available on smartphones, no support for smart speakers at the moment. And when it was launched, there was no fanfare. I mean, Google didn't go with a huge advertising campaign saying to everyone that it's available. And to test the depth of the market, one of the things that we've done is we've built a game. We've actually built more than one. And to our surprise, after a couple of months, it turned out that we've got over 100,000 unique users per month playing the games on the Google Assistant platform that has not been advertised at all, just purely organically finding us through the mechanisms that are available on the platform, of course, but that came definitely to our surprise. And this is something that we're seeing when we're working with customers all across Europe. In Italy, for example, as well, we see a lot of people actually actively using the voice assistant technologies just implicitly, and this is very encouraging, and this is very encouraging for the overall voice use, even despite the discoverability challenges that we all have on those platforms.
Okay. Yeah, I always talk about this, and Antoine will know from my recording I did with him. I always talk about my son, who's now 7. He was 6 when Antoine and I spoke about it, because I've got Google Home, and obviously my son's got his own iPad, so Siri, and he figured it out so quickly. In fact, I didn't show him Siri. He figured Siri out, because he can't. He's only now starting to learn to really write and read. But so what he'll do is he'll ask Siri for a question, and if the answer comes back as a website or a text message, then he'll come to me to read it for him, and then he will speak back to it. But I'm surprised about how this young generation, which makes us all feel so old, even if I'm speaking just on my own behalf, how quickly they pick up this technology. And Harmony, maybe if I can go to you next, because I think when we think about chatbots, many of us think about go to a website and there's this irritating little thing that pops up in the corner and say, hello there, can I help you? And then you're trying to look for the little X that's normally difficult to find to just get the thing to shut up. Sometimes it's helpful, but what about conversational AI? So it's not just texting, but I'm actually speaking to it and it's speaking back to me. So are you working in that field of conversational AI, Harmony, and also from a South African and African point of view and the future of our children? What are your thoughts on some of that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we are working on voice-based conversational AI, and then some of the very interesting things that actually we discovered along the way is I speak up. I mean, in South Africa, for instance, there's 11 official languages. I speak 6 of those languages. And whenever like we do a little bit of training around voice recognition technologies, there's similar ways that like in my language, the same sentence with the same phrase. I'll just give you an example. The phrase "ke lapile" in my language means I'm tired, right? And then this in Tswana, the same sentence with the same pronunciation of words, it means I'm hungry. Right. So those are some of the challenges around voice recognition technologies when it comes to South African languages, African languages. That not only that it's based on words, similar words, but even the phrases themselves. Like the pronunciation and literally like all words on the same sentence, same pronunciation, they mean totally different things. So these are some of the web-based the voice recognition technologies, and then also around accent, around the tone, and then also the use of words. So yeah, but I think in terms of the younger generation, they kind of like are getting familiar with it, and it's different for for old folks because the articulation also is like it's different. So like I think an enormous amount of training is really needed in an African perspective. When it comes to training, voice recognition technologies to understand different, accents, different languages as well.
You're so right. I was in fact today speaking with a banking customer about this technology, and they've invested in a North American platform. And I mean, there's some of these global platforms are amazing. Their challenge is implementing it locally because of the cultural issues, the language issues, the not even language. There's certain sentiments in the way we express ourselves. So, which brings me back to you again, Antoine. I know from the bit we've spoken quite a bit, but these personas, because not only is it all these different languages in our country or in the rest of Africa, but we have different personas. We've got a young hipster and we've got an older investment kind of person. And this technology should interact with them in different ways. And I know you guys have been doing some interesting things there, but let's start off with the language issue and the different ways of expressing. How have you guys worked with that and overcome some of those problems with clients?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing we realized is some of those North American technologies don't work here. Like giving you an African name, it's so diverse. It has so many like syllabs and interpretation to it, that the solution doesn't consider this as a name and consider this as something that doesn't work in the environment. So you have to be really careful around the culture and bringing a very, very English speaking technology into a context like South Africa that has 11 official languages. So hence the combination for us between a process-driven coupled with AI. So really measuring the two, being very careful on the user experience in the end. But the tonality is for us one of the key drivers in the AI work and data science work that we currently doing, is being able to understand what type of experience would feel the audience more comfortable. In a financial context, in an acquisition context, you need to be able to feel the person more comfortable to engage. If you start having something very basic that only gets back to, or you type something that the machine doesn't work and doesn't understand, and you get the same response over and over again, that's no go. This is basic kind of customer experience that you need to sort out in order. The challenge in all this world is not to get the perfect scenario right. It's to manage the fallbacks. So what do you do when there's a mistake that the customer is doing, or that doesn't upload the right name, or the email doesn't work? We're receiving so many feedbacks of people at the question, what is your name? They are asking their problem. So the name field is filled with a whole question. I want to help on this. So I think the A/B test is critical, but having a local team that understands the different variation of languages, analyze the data, and cater for those challenges.
Okay, super. And I want to then go to Michal, and ask you from a Polish point of view or Eastern European point of view, do you also find that we struggle with some of these American products when it comes to tonality and language in Eastern Europe? Is your experience similar?
Generally, there are only a couple of platforms really available in Polish, and yes, absolutely. The regional aspect is super important, and we're trying to do whatever we can to sort of make sure that that we respond to that. And one of the things that is critical for us is the first periods after the deployment, when we actually observe the first real users who are interacting with the solution that we've created. And usually the first 2, 3, 4 weeks are critical from a perspective of finding dead ends, making sure that we are responding in the correct ways, making sure that we are not aggravating users potentially with certain parts of the conversation where there might be a fallback or an error handling in such a way that they would not expect. So it's definitely, I would say that it's less dependent on the platform itself, and it's more dependent on how we design and test the conversation. Because no matter how much testing we do in the design phase, no matter how much Wizard of Oz testing we put in with the customer, first of all us, then with the customer, then we test it again. Then we test it on a proper beta platform where we only have access to like limited audience. There's still things that we need to fix once we let it out into the open as well.
Yeah, and for me it comes back to that silver bullet conversation. You just plug this in and you get going, and the customer is going to get what they want. There is a lot of work behind this, even though this technology is very smart and becomes smarter every day. The way we do it, I think, so our business case, our making sure our customer journeys are mapped out, making sure our data is right, partnering with the right organizations to help us do this. Before we end off, I've got 2 more questions I'd like the whole panel, and Frederick, I'd like to start with you. A topic near to my heart, and I'm sure to many of you, is not just this technology, but what we can use this for when it comes to a force for good. So think of things like education, healthcare. Think of just the pandemic that we're dealing with at the moment, and how much confusion there is, and how much fake news and things like that. So we're all here to make money, and there's obviously the commercial conversation. But when we think about Africa in particular and the future of our children, what are some of your thoughts, even some of your dreams, out of the box stuff? What can happen with this kind of technology to do good for our people? What would you say?
Well, first of all, I would like to say that I see there's a lot of big potential with this technology when it comes to education, healthy. I would give an example. So in Tanzania, we have worked with a certain NGO where we were providing education on loans to these small businesses, small entrepreneurs who are still at the very minimal level, local level, where they're starting out their businesses. So we did something that we created a chatbot whereby it will give them some basic loan information or loan education, and then it would later do something like later connect them with banks whereby they could later get loans and something like that. So to us, we saw that there was very big impact because it's something that they could easily get into it because we integrated through WhatsApp, whereby you find that mostly in the African market, it's a challenge. Also accessing these services is a challenge. So if you are able to take these services and bring them close to people, so for example, through these messaging platforms whereby they are mostly used by anyone, and most people use this messaging platforms in Tanzania. So that is one of the things that we see as an impact. But also, I'll talk on healthy. I'm seeing a lot of impact happening with chatbots. So, for example, there is that chatbot from WHO. Surprising enough is that I'm seeing that chatbot being used a lot by people in Tanzania. I was surprised seeing that there are people that are getting a lot of information from that chatbot. Actually, when it was first deployed by WHO, I couldn't think that. I just thought, okay, so this is just like so it's just a chatbot. Then yeah, it's just a chatbot. But then I was surprised the way that people are using it, and people are really getting information out of that. So information about vaccines and something like that. And since it was integrated through WhatsApp, it's easier for people to get access to it. And yeah, that was one of the big impact that I see. But also there's a chatbot also deployed in Tanzania, whereby it's trying to help young girls trying to get education on different sexual orientation issues. That is something also it's very much used, and since most of its target group is the adolescent girls, you find that since they are also very interested in messaging and chatting, so you find that it's easier for them to adapt it and to use it. So these are many of the ways that I see like these technologies can have an impact in Africa, and they can really pave the way for social good in Africa.
Fantastic. I like in particular what you said about the young people, and and I see it with the youngsters I know, they're just on that thing the whole time. So rather than waste their time on nonsense, can't we just use it to educate them and to help them make better decisions? I'd like to turn to you next, Harmony, your view on how we can use this technology for good in our society.
All right, thank you. Well, I think personally, without even like going into a specific industry, but I think conversational AI chatbots can be utilized across board. So I'll give you an example, right? Back to my earlier point that I make, with services within public sector and private sector, with services being repetitive, manual, and time consuming. On the other hand, we have users, like the millennials, the young generation also, like they are more about like instant results, instant gratification, instant response, like they're all about everything is instant love. So I think there's an opportunity there where chatbots actually can offer that, like in terms of providing personalized customer experience instantly, and then being able to, the availability, like, like we're living in the time where actually, like, we've seen it with some of the products that we've developed, like this young generation, they still send messages even on weekends. You'd think they're sleeping. Saturday night, they send messages, and then that alone, if we're gonna look at the public sector, how the services are being offered, in the private sector as well, like just offering feedback based on the the amount of office hours is really something of the past. So for me, I personally think conversational AI can be implemented across board to offer personalized customer experience.
Absolutely. Michal, I would like to turn to you next. How do we do good to our children and their future and our society with this technology?
So I'm looking at it from slightly different angle, because the space that we're in, the conversational AI space, is something that is here to stay. It's something that is creating new occupations pretty much right now. Conversational designer, conversational developer. What we can do is we can provide access to that technology, to learn that technology, to the young people of our generation, to better prepare them for the future and make sure that in the future, where everything is conversational and we naturally talk with our everyday objects, like the fridge and the speaker and our TV and everything else at home, these people are well prepared to enter the marketplace and make a decent living for themselves. And this is actually, in fact, something that we're doing with the Voice Lunch Foundation, where one part of our mission is to make sure that we lower the barrier of entry into this community, allowing people, not necessarily even young people, but people who want to change their occupation from something that they're doing, especially now in the pandemic area, and learn and grow into these new roles, to actually find a space here, find a safe space and a welcoming space amongst other peers.
I love what you're saying. It's more inclusive, and I stand corrected, because I think about the young people. But you're right. It's just not just the young people who are affected, and what is young and old anymore? I think a lot of us on this call, and I'm going to point to people, are older, but we are still young, and we still have many years left of working, so we can pivot our careers maybe into this kind of technology. And then before we end off, Antoine, let me ask you then about doing good. I mean, you also live with us here in South Africa, coming from Europe and living here now.
Sure.
You're well aware of some of the things we're struggling with, but how can we do good in South Africa and in Africa with this technology?
Yeah, we are working, we are pushing on two key pillars for us. Is the ability to educate better, inform better, give access to the type of solution we're offering. So the data free is one of the things we're working on, and we're offering that as an option to our corporate clients, is being able to create this whole environment data free, which means no barrier to entry. You don't need to download an app. You don't need to pay to just access the information, right? And we know that data is one of the key costs in Africa that blocks an engagement. The second part is educating. So being able to create those experiences that inform better, that answer key questions about a specific product, specific service that a person is looking. So financial inclusion, therefore, if you start aligning different pillars like this, you can work on financial inclusion. That's the first section we're working to inform, educate our own corporate clients that don't necessarily have this vision. And the second part is we're trying to help more on an ad hoc basis and not doing a business out of that, but helping charities access to this technology in order to provide better service. So I'm going to share a link. I'm not sure if the audience will be able to see that on the chat, but we worked over December with the Nashua Foundation that is offering support to kids in South Africa. And we created this technology solution in order to do donations. So we partnered with another South African startup called Bozza that is a payment solution. And we created this experience that can donate, that can help donate in less than literally 30 seconds. I would be able to demo that now if we had more time. But you can donate in less than 30 seconds, and it helps the foundation. It gives access to the foundation and the charity to a technology that enables them to have a better reach and grow their community of donors. So yeah, that's the two things: education, access to information, and financial inclusion, and on an ad hoc basis, more help to charities to access to technology.
Fantastic. I always look at these talks and think, how are we going to fill 40 minutes? And before you know it, it's over, because there's so many great things to talk about. That brings us to the end. To everyone on the panel, thank you very much for your time and for your insights. To our delegates, the profiles of all the panel members are on the event website, so you can connect to their LinkedIn profiles, for instance. But if you want to reach out to any of the panel members and get more insights and even ask some questions about how you can grow this kind of technology in your own business, then by all means reach out to them. Again, thank you to Sydney and for the organizers of this event. I think it's relevant in our country, it's relevant in our continent, and let's work together to offer employment to people, to offer healthcare services, education, and to do good. That's